And this obviously has been front and centre of the news reporting over the last week for obvious reasons, the earthquake in Japan. What's been interested is that was this earthquake predicted? In a site called AccuWeather over out of the US, this is the prediction made on the 1st of March, and there's actually quite a number of astrologers making similar predictions that there was going to be an extreme supermoon this month, and that it was going to be bringing strong earthquakes and storms and unusual climate patterns this month, and that and also that March 19th was the date, which is tomorrow. So we had one person saying that, be forewarned, something big could happen on or around this date. He was giving about a 3-day margin. So we're in that 3-day margin at the moment. Also, what came up was that there were supermoons in 1955, 1974, 1992 and 2005, which apparently all had their fair share of extreme weather and other natural events. So the question that was being asked, and it actually got a huge amount of media airplay, was this, was this just a coincidence, or was this something much, much bigger than that? And the journalist at the very end, once the earthquake happened, wrote a frantic headline saying, "I'm starting to believe." So what is the supermoon all about, and what actually happens? And now that we're in Blackrock Castle, we can talk a little bit about astronomy. But basically, the moon, as it circles the Earth, it doesn't go around in a full circle. It goes around in an ellipse that's slightly squashed. So when the moon is far away, it looks like that. It doesn't look exactly like that, but it's got this size. And when the moon is close to us, we've got a supermoon. We've got what's known as perigee. So you've got apogee and you've got perigee when it's a little bit bigger. Now, one of the things you probably may or may not be aware of is that even though the moon sometimes looks very, very large in the sky, and can particularly look very large in the sky when it's close to the horizon, it's actually a long, long way away from the Earth. This is the planet that we live on. So pretty much everything that has ever happened with humans has happened on this little blue ball here. And over here is the moon. So actually it's really far away from us. And that's the distance that the moon is from us at apogee, when it's actually at its furthest point away from planet Earth. When it's at its closest point, this is where it is. So as you can see, there isn't much of a difference between the furthest point and the closest and the furthest point of the moon away from the Earth. As well as that, we just maps the distance of the moon away from the Earth. If you pretend that the blue line is the Earth, this is the furthest point away, and this is the closest that the moon ever gets. So this is our supermoon. On March the 3rd, the moon will get to this point, and then on April it will start going further away. So to be honest, the moon goes from furthest point to closest point every single month. So if there is a supermoon, the effect really isn't worth thinking about. It's actually a tiny effect. There's much, much bigger effect that happens every month normally. So where they came up with this idea that a moon would cause the earthquake that we saw in Japan is absolutely astounding, to say the least. There have actually been studies done as well. The scientists have actually done studies to see if the moon has any effect, because obviously the moon has an effect on the tides. We see the tides rising and falling every month. But they came to the conclusion that there was absolutely no scientific evidence, no scientific evidence at all. So you get 12 to 13 perigees, close approaches of the moon every year. Magnitude 9 earthquakes or anything like that. Even the earthquake that we've had, obviously, we noticed that it wasn't. It was in March. It was last Friday, I think March the 11th, that the earthquake happened, and the moon was actually very, very quite far away from us. So unless the moon has predictive abilities, I don't think we can really associate it with a supermoon. And the same happened. 2005 as well was when the Hurricane Katrina happened. But again, the moon was nowhere to be seen, even though that the astrologers were convinced that it was a supermoon that caused Hurricane Katrina as well. The moon was nowhere to be seen at the time. So really no scientific evidence to show that the moon had anything to do with the earthquake. The earthquake itself has caused, it's been a terrible tragedy, and I know, we've all seen the pictures and the videos, and I think it would be fair to say they're some of the most disturbing scenes that I've ever seen in the last couple of years. The thing about it is that the whole thing has kind of inspired an awful lot of irrationality and an awful lot of panic. And I don't know if you guys have seen that. Sorry, before I leave it as well, this is the website of the person who coined the idea of a supermoon. So anybody who can produce a website with those colours and that kind of background, has to be immediately suspicious, in my opinion. The other thing as well is obviously there's been a huge rush for iodine tablets. This whole thing. We could probably do an entire meeting on nuclear power and everything like that. And I know that in the last couple of days, that whole thing has become a huge issue again, and it's something that is going to certainly divide opinion. But one of the big things that I saw there a couple of days ago is that we have iodine pills, a rush on iodine pills in America. Now, if anybody looks at the map, there is a very, very large ocean separating Japan from America. It's 5,000 miles away, which is a considerable distance. And even in the worst possible case scenario, the people on the west coast of America shouldn't feel that worried. But there's been a huge run on iodine pills, and we've got something very, very similar happening as well in China at the moment, where people are getting very, very worried about, very, very worried. And these people here actually believe that salt is necessary to guard against nuclear radiation. And so there's been a run on salt stocks in China, because there's a complete belief that will protect you against radiation. So there's a huge amount of lack of understanding or lack of knowledge about the whole thing. One of the big things that came up was homeopathy. And I don't know if I've spoke about homeopathy before, but homeopathy is it's a kind of an alternative medicine that's on sale in Boots, any of the local chemists, which purports to have to be equivalent to what normal medicines give you, but without any of the side effects. And there's a good reason there's not very few side effects, is because homeopathic pills are pretty much made of water and sugar, and there is nothing else. There could not be possibly anything else inside them, because of the way in which homeopathic pills are manufactured. You take a small amount of some substance that is meant to have a curative property or a similar property to the disease that you have. You put it in some water, you then take a small drop of that, you put it in another equivalent size of water, and you might do that 6 times, you might do that 10 times, you might do that 30 times, diluting every single time until there's not the possibility of even one molecule of the original substance remaining in the water. They put that onto a sugar pill and they give it to you. So homeopathy is one of those kind of really bizarre medicines that has arisen. And we had, of course, after the earthquake, people prescribing homeopathy for radiation sickness and radiation poisoning, and suggesting that instead of taking iodine or instead of taking normal drugs, that homeopathic pill would do the job instead. So that's the kind of the stuff that I've seen in the last week or two that certainly seems quite irrational.